Hi, and welcome back to FXPhD Photogrammetry Class 3. On this class, we're going to cover again the control point and the distance. We noticed on the previous classes we had some issue with the distance, so we're going to see how we fix it. It's not only one pictures. And then we're going to cover the UVs with different UDIMs. So we're going to create some UVs and bake the texture. And finally, import everything in Maya and see how we can plug the texture in the shader on the photogrammetry model exported. So let's get started. So here, again, I do have my three different model here, my preview, my normal detail version with 2 millions, and finally the 9.5 million triangle. So I'm gonna just focus on this version just for now, just to make sure we do have something not super heavy. So I'm gonna select my model and go to reconstruction and click simplify tool. And here I'm gonna keep 1 million, and for me it's good enough. Here I'm gonna simplify. So it's gonna take him a few seconds just to simplify and make sure we have a lighter version. So right now we have 2 millions and we have precisely 1 million polygon here, and we notice a massive difference. So now I have this. What I'm gonna do straight away is just to export the version. Just before here, yeah, I'm gonna just export the version. I'm gonna call it preview, just normal version, and I call it 1 here. And yes, press OK. Export textured and color meshes is extremely quick because there's absolutely nothing. So I'm gonna hide this and import the model. There we go. From now, import. The fact we have a lighter model give us a little bit more flexibility and more reactivity as well. Here, there we go. So I do have my model, but still you can see we still have 1 units equal 1 meters, so we still don't have the right scale of the model. Also here, if you check the UVs, we have absolutely no UDIM here. No UVs or no UDIM. So let's see how we can fix it. First of all, I'm gonna put some distance and create some points. So I'm gonna just go back to the alignment here and check my images. Go back to 2D view just to make sure we have some pictures, and click control point. So now you can see it's highlighted. So I can select this one here. So when you click, you have a small zoom in the image with like a pattern, like here. And my second point, so this point 0, and the second point I'm gonna just, for the example, put on the top of the nose here. It just to get this, make it work instead of have something precise. So I'm gonna consider the distance between this corner and the middle of the nose. It's probably 3 meters high. So if you go back here now, you can see points 0 and point 1. To make sure we have a distance, we have to do this in the second picture. So I'm gonna take, for instance, this picture where I can see again my 2 points. I click 0, drag and drop my points, and try to make it here. Obviously it's not very precise, but you can see here is obviously try to update and tell you what is correct and what is not correct. And here, what is telling you, it's a warning. It's not an error. It's a warning telling you it's not very precise. So what I'm gonna do is just to click back to this, hold, and make sure we have in the corner. And you can see straight away the warning disappeared. So we have around a pixel average bias and mistakes. I'm gonna do something identical for point 1. Click, drag and drop, and release. And again, try to make sure we have something in the middle of the nose. And now, this is correct. now we have 2 points. For point 0, we have 2 images, and point 1, we have 2 images. If you go back to the 3D view, oops, sorry, I just clicked by mistake on point 2. So make sure we click again to this one to highlight this. Go back to 3D view. So what we're gonna do now is to create the distance. So let's go back to the 2D view, click on define distance, click point 0, drag and drop point 1. Here in our properties, we can put define distance, and I'm gonna put 300. So I notice now it's not in meters, as I said on the previous classes for some reason. It's now in centimeters. So basically 300 centimeters, it's 3 meters. And now you can see I put the distance and I still have like a red warning. The reason is because it didn't update the scene. I create 2 points and a distance, but now I have to click on update here. If I click on update, it's gonna update the constraint and the warning just disappeared. Also, if you select point 0, what you notice is reality capture just trace like a visual representation to say we see point 0 on all those pictures. For some reason you don't see on this picture, it's probably because on this picture I'm missing the corner. So it's why this is very, very powerful and very interesting to see on which camera I can cover. So the more picture you have when I cover this angle, the more accurate it's gonna be. If I select point 1, it's exactly the same. So means from the first picture, I covered every single images except maybe this one here and maybe another one here. But the rest, yeah, I can see on the same picture this point. It's why this is something very accurate. So now I go back to reconstruction, mesh, and just export. Let's order in detail, peer dates, and I'm gonna just version up this one just to make sure we can keep and compare the different version. Just export, leave it everything by default. Just take a few seconds just to export. Let's go back in Maya and import our version 2 here. It's the same size, obviously, because nothing changed. What I should see is now the scale. So hopefully my model is gonna go up to here. So this now is working. So you noticed the scale is correct now compared to the very small one I had just before. I'm gonna just hide this version. Just assigned a quick shader. Let's put a Lambert. It doesn't matter very much right now. I just need to make sure we have a shader. Select my model. It's 1 million polygon, triangle, sorry, and do a quick rotate. Oops, wrong one. I need to rotate on the X axis. So if I now go on my front view, maybe on the back, yeah. From here to the middle of the nose, I should have 3 meters high. So if I select my model and I put the small corner on the grid, let's select this one roughly, and I can see I have from here 1, 2, and 3 meters. Again, in my settings, make sure the working units, it's meters. So 1 square high means 1 meters, 2 meters, and 3 meters. So now I can scale properly my status. So now this is a success. This is good. What we're gonna do right now is to create some UVs. Again, if I select my model, go in UVs, it's completely empty. If you don't have this icon, just go back here in rendering and modeling here, UV editor. Let's go back to reality capture and let's generate some UVs. Let's unhighlight this, and we do have three different options. The first one we're gonna do is the unwarp tool. So when you clicked on unwarp, obviously you have the unwarp properties appearing here. And what we're gonna do is first make sure we do have only one texture count. So this is basically one UDIM. So I'm gonna force him to make one single UV set and make sure we don't have any UDIMs. It's just one UV set. So if I click on unwarp, now I leave everything by default. This is how it's gonna spread and optimize the chunk of UVs on each UDIMs. So we leave it at 1 right now. We're gonna see on different example right after how this influences the way you reshuffle and organize the UVs. This doesn't matter yet because it's how it's gonna bake the texture. So we're gonna keep it 8K. I think this is great. And we leave it by default at 10 and by default, and that's it. Let's click unwarp. The unwarping models, it's quite powerful. To unwarp a million triangle, you will see it takes again a few seconds. And now, if I click here, I should have nice UDIM, sorry. So only one. Mesh, normal. Let's create version 3. Leave everything by default. Just export. Should be the same size of the file. Go back in Maya. File imports and select version 3. Gonna take a few seconds to import the model. And rotate. So it's the same version. But now, if I clicked UVs, I should see, hopefully, one UV set. So this is great because I can see a very nice representation and see the model here straight away. And this is very, very interesting because I can assess if my UVs are properly done. So if you switch to the texture mode, you will see how the UVs are unfold. And by default, it did a very, very good job. For my texture, for the photogrammetry, I do have something without any stretch. Let's select again and keep it like this for now. Oops, let's go back to the model. Let's right click. Obviously the geometry is very, very heavy. So every single operation could cost quite a long time depending on your machine. So the time is gonna refresh. I'm gonna just go back to reality capture. So now I'm gonna just use the unwarp tool again. And instead of saying I want only one UDIM, I'm gonna say I want 4 UDIMs. Again, we leave the race by default just to compare. Unwarp and export. Version 4. Enter. Go back to Maya. Hopefully it's back to life. I would love if we can have the end of Maya. This is exported. Let's maybe crash Maya and re-import it. Let's quickly stop the process and reopen Maya quickly. Let's go back here and reopen Maya. So basically I'm gonna re-import version 3 and version 4 to compare the two different UV sets. Just the time for Maya to reopen and initialize everything by default. Shouldn't take too long. Right, there we go. Let's make some space, make sure everything's loaded, and file import again. Let's go back in up, in geometry, caches, obj, organized by date. Let's open version 3 first. I'm not gonna assign any shader, it's just to see the UVs. There we go. Let's make a perspective view, press F, and check this. Right, I have one UV set, sorry, and then version 4. Let's hide this for now. And here you see we do have a few UDIMs. The reason we don't have 4 UDIMs is because it's the way we change the variable. So you see, it tried to make sure and optimize everything on as much as possible. So now what we're gonna change is the way you're gonna keep some big chunks. So it's gonna optimize the empty space with small chunk of UVs. So if I go back to reality capture, full screen, I'm gonna keep 4 and change this. I think by default it's 4. And again in warp. Export straight away. And we're gonna compare again the different version. And this is good because we can see when we change on only one single parameters how it affects the method and the way it unfolds the UVs. Let's go back here, Maya, hide this, and import our model version 5. Obviously same size because nothing changed except more UDIMs. For this kind of test, I can have even a lighter version. I think the preview will be even better because it will be even faster. So no, you haven't changed much, but the big advantage is now it just optimized a little bit more the empty space. So depends what you want between this and this. I do prefer to have bigger chunk and have more UVs, even if it won't change too much for the photogrammetry. It always depends of your topology, objects, what you have to do, what's the purpose of it, and this might affect the way you want to spread your UVs. There we go. So the version here is a bit better because it's more optimized, but again, it depends of your topology. So the final test I'm gonna do here is to change this one to 8. And in warp, oops, I double clicked on it. Obviously, if you click here, it's just complaining because you don't have the hand of the software. If you want to change anything, press minimized here. Export, version 5, 6. Again, and go back in Maya. You can see when it's done, this is done now, and import 6. So now we have some UDIMs. What we're gonna do is just to project the texture on it. So the idea is like, obviously we don't want to go on the a Mari or Substance Painter just to repaint everything. We just want to reproject from our photogrammetry a texture file. So I'm gonna use, for instance, this model. For now, it doesn't matter much. So let's use this model for the texture. So I'm gonna close this one here. If you're not happy with the way the texture, the UDIMs and the UVs are, feel free to change this based on what you want. I'm gonna just keep it for now. So I'm gonna click in warp here, and now I'm gonna use the reprojecting tool or orthographic tools. So here you can just basically click on calculate model texture. So if you click on this one here, it will just, based on all the picture you do have in the outliner here and the UVs, just to bake and project the texture. And by default, it do a very, very good job. Let's wait a few seconds, the time to reproject every single texture on the model and the UVs. So, but it won't take too much. Obviously, if you have a massive environment, it can take a few minutes or even few hours. Depends again of the quality of your picture, the quality of the model, the amount of UVs, the amount of data to process. So it's very based on your case and what you have to do. The time have a massive variation, depends on what you want to do and how you did it on set. Let's wait. Again, it won't take too long now to project. So what is interesting here, it's if you go back here, right now in my object folder, I have only the object obj file, so my model. What I do want, it's when we're gonna export the texture, it will obviously create texture files per UDIMs. So it will export everything on the same folder. And in Maya, we're gonna see how we import in the very easy way in the surface shader. So the time is finishing here. What I can do is just to prepare my shader. So I'm gonna just rotate this model here. I do know now I have the right scale. If I go back here because it crashed, let's go back to meters, save. So I still have 1, 2, 3, the right high. Let's go back to the hypershed, create a surface shader. So basically I don't want any lighting influence. I just want like a raw texture file on my UVs. And now I'm gonna just create a file here. There we go. And this will be my shader for my status. Saint Maria shader. There we go. Now I can see the green process bar is done. Go back here and I can see a very lovely texture bake. So now I do have the texture baked on the UVs. And theoretically I should have two textures. Let's go back here to mesh, exports, version 7, just to make sure we have something else, and exports, and yeah, exporting textures and colorized mesh. Go back to my Explorator windows, and you can see here I do have two PNG with the right UDIMs here. Obviously during the export you can decide to export on the different formats. It's completely up to you. Here for instance, when you do render, you can do like a video, but what you do want is this. It's definitely mesh export. What is great, it's you can export in FBX as well. FBX working very, very well. Alembic, I believe Alembic it's somewhere. ABC file. No, I don't see ABC file. So yeah, if you don't have OBJ and you prefer something else, here FBX. So for now, what I do want, it's only my mesh and my texture. I'm gonna hide this. It's gonna be the same. File import 7 import. Take a few seconds to import. There we go. I'm gonna right click, existing, Santa Maria shader, rotate 90 degrees. I have the right high. Yeah, this is correct. And go back to my hypershade. Let's obviously create a shader peer objects. And I'm gonna load my file. I recommend just to move the texture at the end because I won't leave the texture in the OBJ, cache OBJ. You should have like a better folder for the texture. But for us, I'm gonna just click the first one and straight away you can see the texture here. And we have the UDIMs. I'm gonna open. There we go. And because it's some UDIMs, I'm gonna just select Mary. And then I do have my token. So here is not working by default. So what you can do is just to go back to off and press and replace with only 4. There we go. So let's go back here, my texture, and I should see my texture appeared. For some reason it's not working. Let's go back here. Let's press UDIMs. Oops, let's go back to this one here. Open. Yeah, this now should work by default. But obviously it's not working for some reason. Maybe I'm in the wrong... No. 5, 6, and 7. So I should see my texture. Let's create another shader. I'm gonna assign this one here. It's probably in cache so you don't update properly. Outsource, file, select my texture, open. So now at least it's working halfway through because it says no UDIMs. So if I switch back to Mary, off, and I'm gonna replace this with... No, it's not working either. So for some reason it's not working. And let's go back to... No, either. I need to check this out for the next session, why by default this is not working. So something we can do, if it's not working by default, it's let's get a FBX. The advantage with the FBX, it's you do have the camera. So if I select this one here and mesh FBX here, I'm gonna call it 3 by default and saved. So you can have access here now on the texture, so you know it's gonna be a JPEG, or you can say I want a TIFF file, and then you can define the depth. So I'm gonna do 32 bits and everything by default in this folder. So let's now export the FBX. If you want to use to reproject and use some camera to reproject some texture in Mary, and you want the camera, FBX is the right file export format. So you can see now it's changed. It's just go a warning and you close. Go back in Maya. I'm gonna import my FBX. This one here, slightly lighter, and I have quite a lot of teeth now for some reason. Let's import. Should be identical. Yeah, do have some warning. This is absolutely fine. This is my mesh. So as soon as at the end, select the mesh. take a while because we have all the camera in the outliner. Let's close this one here. Let's wait a little bit the time Maya to refresh. Yeah, still going. There we go. Now he's back. No, still processing. The reason it's just taking a while is because we do have a lot of TIFF file here. So if I go here, you can see it did export quite a lot of TIFF for some reason. It shouldn't, because we should have only 2 UDIMs. So for the next session, I will see how I can fix this issue with the texture, and we're gonna try to another example to make sure we have more diversity in between objects. So I hope you did understand the way we recreate some UVs and UDIMs on reality capture and to export the different texture. Hope to see you in the next session.